Good afternoon, beautiful women. I wanted to share with you another educational video all about the importance of healthy boundaries and how to have boundaries in our marriages and relationships and what that actually looks like. If you are new to the group, I have put a couple of educational videos up for you to view whenever it's convenient. I have one on anxiety already up there, and I have another one, and right now it's escaping me on what it's for, but it's there in my group for you. This is my third educational video, and I will be doing a few more as well. These are just my gift to you. We all come into this group at different spaces and places in our marriage. Some of us are here and we've kind of come through a difficult season, and we're enjoying a season of gratitude and rest in the conflict that maybe initially had brought us into the group. And it's always, I believe, helpful in those seasons of rest and gratitude in whatever God is doing in your marriage right now. This is a good time to work on skills. This is a good time to do some due diligence on yourself and recognize, wow, we're in a great season in my marriage. I want to make sure that in this time of rest and recovery, that I am discovering all that I can about who God has called me to be, and knowing that conflict and difficult seasons will come back. They just will, and it's our job really as women, not just as women, as human beings, to be aware of ourselves, better aware and educated on how to help ourselves and help our marriages, so that when those difficult seasons come, we're prepared and we're better equipped to handle it the next time. Some of us aren't in a season of rest. And so I want to just speak to that as well. I know a lot of you guys who've been joining the group also are not in a season of rest, and you're in a season of real struggle and feeling truly overwhelmed and not knowing where to start. And so this is a great place to start as well, is just with the awareness and curiosity just about how to protect yourself, how to have a boundary. So I hope wherever you are in your marriage, that this educational video today will reach you, will connect with you, will resonate with you. And as always, I am here for questions. I am here to help you if you want to book a discovery call with me and you really are like needing to take action right now on your marriage. Then book a discovery call with me and we can get started on that right now. So I hope you can enjoy this educational video wherever you are. And like I said, there's a couple more also that will always be here for you to watch. And they're free. They're my gift to you. I've been a therapist now for 9 years and a coach for about 2 years, or a year and a half. And so I'm really excited about what God is doing in my own work and my own career, and bringing me more into the coaching space as a Christian woman, how I can help people connect their story to God's story and help transform relationships in that process. So that's why I'm here. That's what I'm doing, what I'm doing. It's truly, honestly, at this point, a ministry, and obviously also a business. But my heart is truly, truly with you guys and for you guys. And I believe 100% that this is what God has called me to do, and what He's kind of equipped and prepared me with all my training to be available here now to help you all. So, with that being said, let's get into boundaries. So, the first thing I want to just explain about boundaries, in my experience as a therapist and even now as a coach, boundaries are really confusing. They're really confusing. A lot of the time, people think that boundaries are like walls that are fixed and that don't move, that don't penetrate. And just to kind of slowly dive into this together, I want you to just start thinking about a boundary as a white picket fence, a white picket fence with a hinge that swings both ways, that's malleable, that can be adjusted, Okay. A great definition, just to start with boundaries, and there's also a great book on boundaries that's faith based. It's written by Henry Cloud um, and Townsend. I have the book, I'll show you, I have it right here on my shelf. So, by Dr. Henry Cloud and Dr. John Townsend. This book is really, really, it's been around, over 2 million plus copies sold. It's been around for a while. So, for some of you, it's old hat. But what I really want to just mention is, even if you can't read the whole book, because we're moms and wives and we have a lot going on, even if you just read the first 5 chapters, you basically got the heart of what the book is about, like sorted. But the real important thing is that boundaries are our way of protecting what God has equipped and designed in us to do. So we need boundaries in order to fully function and be who God has made and designed us to be. If we're constantly unhinged or unprotected and open all the time for business, as it were, um, if we're not taking care, I love how they talk about boundaries as the land that God has given each of us as human beings, and that it's our job to protect our land. No one else is going to do that. And if you think about your world and your relationships, if you think about it just as a plot of land for a second, what are the things that are affecting how your land grows? Are you watering the soil? Are you taking care of the perimeter, making sure that people and energy and certain activities don't affect your land's probability and fruit production? So I'll leave that metaphor for a minute, but I just start to think about that. It's our job to protect our land. So in order for us to do whatever God has called us to do in our life, if we're not really clear on that, that's okay. Maybe we're early on in our kind of discovery phase, and right now we're maybe just in a survival phase. But we truly, if we don't at least know what we need in order to do our day, to do our week, to do, the next 5 minutes, if we don't know what we need in order to do that, then we're not clear on what is best for us, what helps us do the job that God has called us to do. And if we're not clear on that, then my question to you is, how are we going to be able to do what God has called us to do? So whether this is a mom, who's a Christian wife and has maybe 2 young children, or I talked to someone last week who has 12 children. Unbelievable, right? Um, we have to be very clear on what supports our land and our boundary, the people, the things, the activities that lift us up, support us, encourage us so that we can be at our best, and the things, the places, the behaviors, the actions, the activities that deplete us, that tax us, that literally suck the life out of us. A very kind of old metaphor to make this make a little bit more sense is also that airplane quote that we get: if you have small children, make sure you put the oxygen mask on you first before you put it on your child. And I think that's just so important, again, as another way to understand what boundaries are. If we are not receiving oxygen first, we cannot help those around us. We cannot work efficiently. We cannot love on our husbands, serve our husbands, meet our husbands, care for our husbands. If we're literally in a season of conflict and heartbreak in our homes and in our marriages, if we're not getting our oxygen, we are going to be so much more kind of coming into those spaces of conflict with a loss and with a deficit. and we're not going to be strong to fight that fight and to deal with that, whatever those situations are that you're struggling with in your marriages, if we're not putting that oxygen mask on us first every single day in some way, then we're not going to be able to truly be connected to what God has for us, to our bodies, to our brains, to our hearts, to our systems, to understand how to efficiently and effectively meet the task at hand, um, how to speak for ourselves, how to ask for our needs. None of that's going to happen. And we're just going to be in a constant state of survival, which is really not how God has called us to live. Um, I know this is hard and it can feel maybe a little heavy and overwhelming. So I'm trying to keep it simple. But again, if you have questions, please reach out to me because I know for some of us, this is very new. And maybe we're newly married and we didn't think that we would have trouble. We love our husbands. We knew that they loved us. So why in the world are we struggling? So that is also a really tender, tender place. So I don't want you to feel like you're alone in any of this. So please do reach out to me if I can help answer any questions. So Brene Brown is another person who talks a lot about boundaries. And while I don't necessarily agree with everything that Brene says, I do love her definition of boundaries. She says boundaries are our way of understanding what is okay for me and what is not okay. So for me, for instance, I have a very strong and clear boundary in the morning that I have to have my quiet time by myself with my cup of coffee, reading either the Bible app or another devotional, and praying and just sitting still in the morning. This is something I must confess to you all that I have just started doing really in the last 2 years, but most intentionally in the last year. And the difference it has made in my own life is unbelievable. And I actually can truly attest to the fact that I crave this time every morning. I crave it. Now it means I get up at 5:30. It means I get up earlier than I want to. I like to sleep. um, but but it is so imperative for me and it has become a boundary. It is what I need to do in order to be able to help my child get ready for school. I need to pray for myself and my husband every day in order to be able to be who I believe that God has called me to be in my marriage right now, and to be tender and sensitive in the ways that I need to be, not only to myself, but also to what my husband has going on. And also for me just to have that time to check in on myself and just recognize, wow, I'm tired, my shoulders are sore, I didn't sleep well, I'm worried about something that's coming up today. Lord, please take that from me. Whatever it is, I need to do my own inventory in the morning and just figure out how I'm showing up to meet that day. If I don't do that work, and I'm really just jumping into the day without really any clarity, any focus, any intention. And for me, that really creates a lot of mess, a lot of anxiety, and it, just hectic, frantic kind of energy. And I find that if I do that, it's maybe the end of the day or the middle of the day when I actually stop and and connect with the Lord. And then I've lost part of the day to just being kind of sleepwalking through my own life. And I really don't believe that's how God has called us to live and designed us to live. I know it's hard, ladies. I know it's hard to find that time, especially if you have little ones that get up super early. So I just want to challenge you with whatever the boundaries are that you need, those things that you need that are okay for you so that you can be who God has created and designed for you to be. Just start finding those things out for yourself. Maybe for some of you, it's like I have to walk every day, or a boundary might be I don't want to have any bad conversations or heated conversations after dinner. That's a great boundary, by the way. Another like easy boundary is I don't want to be on my phone when I come home and be with my family. I want to leave my phone, maybe where the keys are, or leave my phone downstairs when I go up to bed. That's another good boundary. Um, Another boundary, like with husbands, might look something like We're not gonna talk about this situation. Maybe it's issues with money or whatever pain point we're in right now. We're gonna not have that conversation around the kids. Or I'm not gonna let you talk to me that way. That's a boundary. That's us saying, this is not okay for me. Now, sometimes they won't like us making boundaries. So be aware of that, to expect some resistance. And just again, another awareness of boundaries on an internal level is it is not my I'm not responsible for my husband's feelings about me making boundaries. I'm going to say that one again. I am not responsible for how my husband feels about me making boundaries. Nope, because they're not going to maybe like it. So I just want you to be prepared for that. And it's okay. It's okay. Because in order for you to be able, again, to be in the marriage, especially if you're in a season of struggle, you've got to be clear on what you need in order to do each day, in order to feel emotionally safe as best as possible in your marriage. If you don't feel physically safe, that's a whole other thing. I've talked about that before, but do reach out to me and I will give you some resources to help you with that situation. So I just want you to expect some resistance when you start to share your needs and when you start to change behavior and making boundaries and doing things differently. People aren't going to necessarily like it, and that's okay. All right. So we have to make boundaries in order to preserve God's land, God's design, his creation of us, and whatever he's called us to do. And it's our job and our job alone to protect our land. It's our job to protect our boundary. No one else is going to do it for us. You know, so often I feel like women that I've worked with really believe that their husbands should know better. I hear them say, "Oh, they know that. They know that about me." Or they know what I need, or I shouldn't have to tell him that. Um, Actually, that's not true. We have to tell them that. We have to tell them what we need. We have to tell them when something isn't okay. Because if we're not going to do it, then truly, who is? And also, they are just to be real from a like just a psychology perspective, everyone is truly consumed with their own stuff. You know, like if you think about yourself just for a minute and how many thoughts you have and feelings you have and the stressors you have and the feelings you have about your husband and maybe the anger or the emotion or the overwhelm, wherever you are, your husband most likely has something very similar going on for himself about you or about his work or his day. Um, I don't think that it is as easy to explain as the close of In and Out when you see the inside mind. I don't know if you've seen that movie In and Out. It's great if you haven't. Excuse me, Inside Out. Inside Out, where the boy's brain is just flatlined. It's just like nothing's going on. That is not how, in my experience as a licensed professional, that is not true of any of us. We're so active in our mind and our body is always, there's so much going on. So it is truly our job to tell our husbands what we need, to tell our husbands what's okay. Another boundary that I have is I'm very, very busy. And it is very important for me when I'm not working to be with my little girl and my husband as much as I can. Um, but I also need my friends. I also need my community. And so there's a few people here in Nashville. I'm not one of those people who needs tons of friends, but I do have some quality friendships. I have to make sure that I see them a couple times a month. I have to. That's a boundary for me. I need it. And so does it mean that I don't maybe get to be home with my daughter 2, 3 nights out of the month to in order to do that? Yeah, it means that. And it's important. So it's my job. And that's one of the hard things about being an adult is we have to advocate for ourselves. We are in charge of the perimeter of our land. We have to maintain it. We have to take care of it, nurture it, water it, feed it well. So, really, I hope this is helpful. I hope this is penetrating and you're getting some of this because it is so important and it is so important in marriage. Um, we weren't designed to just kind of live all enmeshed and on top of one another. We often, I find, especially in young marriage or in young relationships, I don't mean young in age, I just mean new. Um, Sometimes we can't tell where our spouse starts and where we start, right? Because we're just so in love and everything is euphoric, and some of that is okay and it's expected because it's exciting. But as the relationship ages, it's so important to recognize, who am I in this relationship? And then who am I, just me, who God created me to be? And if it's really hard for me to know the difference, then that tells me that I don't really know myself very well. And if I don't know myself very well, I'm not going to be able to protect my land and make a boundary because I'm not going to know what I need. So I know there's a lot there to unpack. And I just want to name also that I didn't know myself for years. It probably wasn't until my mid 30s that I really started, no, early 30s, but that I really started to figure out, who am I? What do I want? What does turn me on, excite me, inspire me? What doesn't? What do I need? What do I not need? What works for me? What doesn't? So as you're starting to think about this, just remember, it's our job to protect our land, to preserve it, to take care of it. And it's our job to advocate for ourselves, use our voice, and ask for what we need, even if it upsets people around us. We're not responsible for their feelings. Okay? The third thing I want to just share with you on boundaries is that boundaries are malleable, they change. So as we grow, as we get stronger and more better able to take care of ourselves and understand ourselves, and we're walking in where God wants us to go, and we're kind of in line and connected with Him, we might not need the same boundaries. For instance, we might be able to tolerate different things with our husbands. For instance, if you can think about it this way, think about after a fight with your husband, and you can't tolerate much, can you? Um, you're emotionally exhausted, you're depleted, you don't have any energy to talk, you don't want to talk. So, in that case, a boundary is going to sleep, going to take a shower. I'm not going to do this anymore because I physically have nothing else to give. And if you're again young in a relationship or new in your marriage for any reason, or you're just new in experiencing conflict in your marriage, that also might be new, then when a conflict happens, it can feel annihilating, it can feel completely destructive. But the more you grow, the more you have more awareness of that conflict is a part of marriage. We want to fight fair. We want to fight with wisdom and intention and with kindness. We do not want to fight unfair and nasty. But the more equipped you get to deal with just issues that arise, your boundary would change. So you might not need as much time away, for instance, or you might be not as easily hijacked, especially if you've done work with like a coach or with a therapist. You might not be as overwhelmed as quickly. So you need different things than you did when you were in a new season of overwhelm, or maybe you were having a trauma response at that time. So don't be surprised that your boundaries, as you grow, as you become stronger, more aware of yourself, and more connected with the Lord in whatever season you are in, that your boundaries also change. I think why I feel this is so important to mention is because I believe that when we need strong and strict boundaries, it's because we have been hurt and they're necessary. for us to feel safe again. And we're living in a world right now where people truly do not feel safe. I think it's been, probably always with us, but we're talking about it a lot more now. It's much more in the culture and in the social culture, and people are more aware of boundaries, for instance, and they kind of sometimes make a joke of it, or just have the wrong idea about boundaries. But if we have too strict of boundaries, then we're never going to grow. Does that make sense? So, for instance, if we go back to the land analogy, when I am new with my land, when let's just say I'm a new farmer, I can only take care of a small amount of land initially because I don't know what I'm doing, right? I'm like, oh my gosh, where's the seeds? What's how do I plow? What are the seasons? How do I, the temperature, the weather, all these things that a new farmer and caretaker has to be aware of. And a seasoned farmer, a seasoned caretaker, they can take care of more land. They can take care of more responsibility, right? So I hope that encourages you. Just when you're new in the boundaries and this is a new concept for you, you want to keep it manageable and you want to keep it small and recognize in that space, oh, it works really good when I get up, like Julie said, in the morning and I have my quiet time. Or, oh, it works really good when I make sure I see a girlfriend or someone who's emotionally safe for me every week. That helps me. Or it works really well when I ask my husband to put my daughter down every other night so then I can have some quiet time for myself and maybe watch 30 minutes of a show or read a book or talk to somebody on the phone. Those are things that help replenish you and calm you down. And those are the things that can potentially change as you grow and as your land and your responsibility and your awareness of what you need gets more, you gain more awareness of that. So we don't want to keep our world small like this, the early farmer, the young farmer. We don't want to keep our boundaries rigid. We want to allow space for them and us to change as we are growing. Okay. And then the last thing I want to say about boundaries, thank you guys for hanging around. I hope this has been helpful. It's also really important, again, especially in marriage, to own what is ours to own. To not take on, like how we were talking about a second ago, when you start making some boundaries and saying some things that you need from your husband, most likely he's going to have a little bit of a issue with that. Maybe not. Maybe you'll say, okay, whatever you need. But it's very common to have pushback. Very common. And so I'm going to own what I need to own. And in that situation, just because that's an example I gave earlier, I don't need to own how he feels about that. I don't need to own the fact that he maybe has not been taking care of himself, not wanting to get help, that he has not been investing his heart with the Lord daily. I don't need to take responsibility for anything that my husband is or is not doing, or anything that he is putting on me, that he is trying to burden me with. We want to share and support our husbands. We want to encourage our husbands. We want to have a partnership, but we can't do it all. I hope you heard that, ladies. We can't do it all. God did not design us to do it all. God designed us to join. He designed us to support and encourage our husbands as best as we can. And we can't do it perfectly because we're humans and we need the Lord every day, every minute of every day. We need God. We need his help. So we can pray for our husbands. I do this a lot more with mine because it is part of my nature to help. I'm a helper. I'm a therapist. I like to help. I like to feel needed, but I can't take care of my husband's diabetic medication and all the insurance issues. I can't do that too and do my work and take care of my daughter and take care of I can't do it all. We need to be very clear about where our line is, where it stops and where our husband's line begins. Okay. This is a boundary. Okay. So we don't want to own what is not ours to own. We don't want to take on what is not something that we need to or can or are capable of taking on. I don't want to get too confused with this because once we start to do that, we really become codependent. And codependency is a whole other topic, but a codependent person is someone who is living for the needs and the feelings of others and has no sense of self at all. They've lost themselves. And it's more important to them how someone else feels about them than how they feel about them. It's more important to them that they're making others in their life happy as opposed to fulfilling what God has for them and finding peace and joy and contentment and happiness with the Lord. So, whole other issue, but I just wanted to name that since we're kind of getting close to it with the ownership. So, I hope that this was helpful for you guys just to start really understanding the unbelievable and invaluable importance of having boundaries in your relationships. And just to summarize again, we want to make sure we are preserving and protecting our boundary, our land that God has made and created and designed in us because He's made us. Number two, it is our job to advocate for ourselves. No one else is going to do it, to ask for our needs, to use our voice. And don't expect everybody to be okay with us once we start doing it. That's okay and it's expected. Number three, boundaries, don't be surprised that they start to change as you grow, as you get stronger, as you feel more equipped and more connected with the Lord. Don't be surprised that your world also starts to grow and change, and so do your boundaries. And number four, own what is yours to own. Understand and be very clear about what you can let in, what you need to take on, and what is too much. We all have a bandwidth and we all have limits. And just because we're amazing women and we can do great things and we do great things doesn't mean that we should do all the things, because then it affects us and our boundary. Okay. So I hope this was helpful. I hope this made you think, made you curious. Any questions you have, you can always reach out to me. And anything that God is kind of placing on your heart, or calling to mind for you, bring it to Him. Ask Him to make it clear. Wrestle with Him about any of issues that you found with anything I've said or anything that doesn't make sense, or God, how can I possibly change this? How can I, maybe there's a little overwhelm coming up. Like, I don't know how to make a boundary. I don't know how I can possibly say anything to my husband. I don't want to make things worse. I don't want to rock the boat. Ask God to help you with that. He will. And there is a way. There is a way to do it effectively and healthfully. But we can't survive without boundaries. We can't be who God has equipped and designed and created us to be if we're not protecting and taking care of ourselves. So I hope this was helpful, guys. Please reach out to me if you have any questions. Much, much love to you, and God's richest blessings on you.